Making sure everything's set up. Okay, that looks fine on TikTok. That looks fine on YouTube. Good morning, TikTok. Okay, rock and roll. Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, the 27th of November, and this is AI with Kyle. I'm going to be running through the latest AI news and updates of the day. Today, we're going to be focusing on Flux Two, which is a new open source image generation model, a potential competitor to Nano Banana Pro, which came out last week from Google. And because it's a relatively slow news day, I'm also going to talk about open source software versus closed source software, what it actually means, and also show you how you can access open source software, how you can get it installed on your own computer or elsewhere, because I've seen a lot of confusion about what this means, and lots of people just assuming closed source means paid and open source means free. It's a little more than that, so I just wanted to go into a bit more detail about why open source is important, and what it means for the future of artificial intelligence and software as a whole. But we're going to do this through the lens of Flux 2, which is a new image generation model that just came out. So let me find my... Here we go. So Flux 2 comes from Black Forest Labs. Flux 2 is here, our most capable image generation and editing model to date. Now, Flux 1, I'm trying to remember when it came out. It would have been 2024, I think, was the model that was used originally in Grok Imagen. Now, I don't personally use Grok that much, but the Imagen mode, the Grok image generation and video generation is very good. Very, very good. When you generate an image on any other platform like ChatGPT or even Nano Banana Pro inside Google Gemini, it takes a very long time to create that image. And it's quite frustrating, especially if you want to make lots of different variations and then kind of choose one. What Flux is really good at is almost instantaneous generation. So you'll give it a prompt like a dog driving a fire engine, and it will just give you 10, 20, 30 images almost in real time, extremely quickly, and then you can choose which one you like. Flux 1 did that, and that was put inside of Grok initially as its image model. That was since replaced by, I think, something called Aurora, but now Flux 2 is out, and I wouldn't be that surprised if we see it started to be put into models like Grok again, because it looks pretty good. So it just came out yesterday. So the Frontier Visual Intelligence, it is, the headline here is that it's very, very good, almost as good as Nano Banana Pro, and we'll look at the benchmarks in a moment, but a fraction of the cost. Nano Banana Pro is not cheap if you want to build it into your application. Nano Banana Pro costs about 15 cents per image. So if you are serving up lots and lots of images to your customers, if you build an application, every single image that you are creating, and these are 2K images, will cost you 15 cents. So what's that? 6 or so of those, and you're paying $1. Very expensive for image generation. Flux 2 Pro is roughly the same quality, slightly below, according to one of the benchmarks, but it costs about 3 cents per image. So it is much, much, much cheaper. It's 5 times cheaper, but almost the same quality. So this is what people are looking at right now. This is, I'm not sure what this benchmark is. Oh, it's ELO. But we're seeing this across all the various benchmarks with people saying, hey, this is very good. This is an extremely good visual model, image generation model, and it's cheap. And it's open source, which we're going to talk about in a moment. So let's have a look at the official announcement. So Flux 2 Frontier Visual Intelligence. Flux 2 is designed for real-world creative workflows, not just demos or party tricks. That feels targeted to me. It generates high-quality images while maintaining character and style consistency. Super important if you actually want to work with this. Across multiple reference images, following structured prompts, reading and writing complex text, adhering to brand guidelines, and reliably handling lightning layouts and logos. So basically, you can use it for your actual design work. A lot of the image and video generation tools are what they say. They're basically party tricks or demos. So something like Sora 2, it's fun, and it held the attention of the internet for a week or so. I don't personally know anyone who's still using it. It was great, and everyone wanted a code. But as soon as we used it once or twice, it's like, okay, I get it, and people basically dropped off. And you don't hear much about Sora 2 anymore. It's kind of a cool demo. It's kind of a party trick. It's a fun toy, but it's not something that yet is ready for production. It's not necessarily something you're going to be using professionally on a day-to-day basis. Nano Banana Pro, which came out last week, to me feels like a real shift in, oh, cool, we can make images. Now we can make images with consistent text inside, and it's going to get that text correct. So if you're doing design work, or if you're doing anything professional and you need to add text into your image, you can now do that. That is a solved problem. Whereas before, you'd have to generate the image and then redo the text, or regenerate until you have the correct text, or have no text and add it later in Photoshop. It was a faff. So the main big thing about this and Black Forest Labs and Flux Two is that this is open source. So you can deploy it yourself. And I'm going to be showing you how you can do that in a moment. I'm also going to talk about open source in general, because I think it's quite interesting. Because the Chinese labs in particular are going hard in on open source. And the American labs are closing down and bringing everything inside. So from Flux 1 to Flux 2, it looks like a big jump. What we're going to do though is we are going to hop in and actually have a look. So I want some, if you can give me some requests, I will generate them live. What I'm going to do is I'm going to generate in the playground. So this is one way to get access. Let's see if we can get Flux 2. I haven't tried this out yet, so I'm not sure how much capacity it'll give me, or it might immediately say I need to pay. Oh no, 53 images. So if you can tell me what you want me to generate, I'll go ahead and do that. Just checking questions. Okay, let's generate. Let's see what they have down here. So we've got some Dare the Dead balloons. We've got a bear in some. Oh, this is good. This is like a Christmas market. I know. Let's do. So let's do a photo of a Christmas market with Day of the Dead theming. Where shall we make this market? Shall we put it in? Let's put it somewhere. No, I'll put it in London. Of a London Christmas market with Day of the Dead theming in Flux 2 Pro. Go ahead and see if that works. Okay, so I'm already noticing it is generating multiple variations. So this is what Flux 1 did as well, which was fantastic. This is what Nano Banana Pro, DALL-E 3, which is in ChatGPT, and others do not do. They'll generate one image for you in their app version, and if you don't like it, you need to say, okay, go ahead and change it. So it has generated 4 variations for me, which is much closer to something like Midjourney. Okay, so this is pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty solid. So it's been very literal about London, and it's put Big Ben here. It's actually put, I think this is meant to be the kind of Parliament offices next to it. The roofs are very similar. The layout is wrong, because if this was there with the House of Parliament there, we would actually be on the bridge in this shot, but we're not going to dock it for that. In terms of the faces, can we zoom in? Oops, that's interesting. Zoom in is making it zoom out. That's unhelpful. The details are fine. Hands look okay. Let's try some other ones. It's given me depth of field here, which is interesting. It's focused on here, so can you see these are slightly blurry. These people here look a bit robotic, but that's fine. Again, we have Big Ben and we have the Parliament building here, but they've also put it on this side. And this looks like the Methodist Hall in the background, maybe. So it's having a go at London, but we're not going to dock it for that. That's hilarious how it puts Big Ben or the Elizabeth Tower in every single picture. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Let's see if we can do text, because this has been a big issue. So one thing that Nano Banana Pro is very good at is because it puts everything through a reasoning model beforehand. it can actually work out what should be in the image, and it works out your composition. So that means Nano Banana Pro is fantastic at infographics, at doing slides, at comics. You can say make an explainer comic about artificial intelligence, and it will be able to do that. Not sure if Flux 2 will be able to, because it's not necessarily putting it through through that level of thinking before generating, but let's give it a go. So an infographic about making matcha latte. So I'm dubious that this will work, but we'll give it a shot. And again, it's pretty fast. It's not giving me the instantaneous speed of Flux 1, which used to be in Grok. That was like super fast. That said, I am using it in the Pro mode. There's also Flex, which will be faster. I'm also and there's also the different aspect ratios. I can increase the batch size or decrease as well. Right, so it's not terrible. So we've got add matcha powder on the left, add I'm not sure what it's trying to say there, but you can see the text has gone wrong. So we've got 1, 2, 3, whisk until frothy. Then we have another 2. Then we have a 4. So add boiling water. I don't know what that's meant to be. It's a strange looking kettle. Pour milk into matcha. So that's text has gone wrong again. Use high quality matcha. Water about 80 degrees. Sweeten to taste. So it's not as good as Nano Banana Pro when it comes to text. Nano Banana Pro would have been able to knock this out of the park. However, Nano Banana Pro is specifically built for that kind of task because it adds it through the reasoning model. Make matcha latte. Sift matcha, add hot water, whisk until frothy, steaming milk, steam or froth milk, combine or draw. I don't actually know how you make matcha latte, but this seems kind of right. Pour in hot, not boiling water. I think here they're whisking it the wrong way. Okay, it's not terrible. The actual graphics themselves are quite good. I like the kind of bubbles on the matches here. But in terms of the infographic, it's not as good as Nano Banana Pro. That said, I don't think it's necessarily built for that. But in terms of photos, that's pretty solid. I would again say that's not the quality of Nano Banana Pro. This is not my area of expertise though. I use image AIs very casually, and I'm sure a lot of people will know a lot more about this. This tool is Flux 2. Somebody's just asking. So this is Flux 2, which comes from Black Forest Labs. The reason why we are covering it though is because it is open source. So this is a big competitor to Nano Banana Pro because Nano Banana Pro is not cheap. It's a very good image model. It's also very expensive if you are building with it. So I wanted to show you how you can get access to this because it's not as obvious as an image model that's built into Gemini or an image model that's built into ChatGPT. I was going to say an image model that's built into Claude, but Anthropic don't do images. They don't care about that. So one way you can get to it is you Google Flux Playground, and inside the Flux Playground you are given some free credits. I'm sure you can pay to get some more. You can buy credits. Yep. So £1 per credit. Sorry, not pound. How much was that? 0.0, so 1 cent per credit. So you can do it through the playground if you want. That allows you to get access. You can also use the model through existing image generation software. So something like Replicate, they have now added Flux 2. All of the various tools will have added Flux 2 by now because it's the new hotness. So multi-reference editing, complex typography, stunning detail up to 4 megapixels, etc. So this has been added into Replicate, and again it will be added into all of the different tools that you pay for. Or, and now this is where it gets exciting, you can get the open source version. So this is the repo. This is a fully public repo. You can come onto here. You can clone it onto your system, onto your own server, your VPS. It's also available on Hugging Face. So we have here Black Forest Labs, Flux 2 Dev. I assume that's the one you'd use. So again, you could pull the model here. You can deploy it. So via Hugging Face, you can actually kind of rent a server. You can get it running via Hugging Face, or you can download it onto your computer and get it running if you know how to do that. So this is why this new model is exciting, is because immediately after Google releasing a top-of-the-range model, Black Forest Labs have released something that's almost as good, but it's open source, or it costs a fraction of the price to run if you're running it on a service. So that's very exciting. And we are continuing to see progress every single week. Again, images and AI art is not something that I really pay much attention to, but I think it's good to see there is still open source competition to the closed source models, to the private companies who are pushing these things. What I want to talk about, because there isn't much news today after last week, which was an absolute onslaught, I want to talk about open source and closed source and what that means, because I've seen a lot of people kind of asking or feeling a bit afraid to ask, and they see these terms being thrown around and kind of assume they should know what they are. So I wanted to do a quick primer guide on what the difference is, whether one is better or not. No, they're just different things, and knowing what this means for the future of artificial intelligence. I'm going to see if there's any questions first, and then I'll hop into that. I'm not seeing any. That is perfectly fine. How was the event yesterday? Oh yes, it was good. It was, oh gosh, what is hosted by, or it was about SemGrep, which I need to try out. I'll pull it up now. This is not sponsored. This is just something I want to show you. So when you are vibe coding, especially if you're someone like me who is not a coder, somebody who's not a software engineer, there are many opportunities to add vulnerabilities accidentally into your software, things that can be penetrated and like broken open by hackers and nefarious actors, or just by accident. If your code is so kind of soft and weak that it just kind of opens up and shows people user details or passwords that you're not meant to, even if it's not under attack. This is a problem with vibe coding security as a whole. So there was a talk yesterday by a guy called Nitin from SemGrep, and I'm going to try this out today. Basically, SemGrep acts as a little, here we go, AppSec engineer, an app security engineer. It can, well, it can do a few things. It can go through your code base, look at all your API calls, and basically work out, oh, this one is vulnerable for this reason, and it will suggest fixes. So it can do like an audit and go back through your code base and fix things up. It can also, this is what I'm really excited about, it can act alongside you when you're working in something like Cursor. So you'll have your AI vibe code up some code for you. That code will then be sent via an MCP over to SemGrep. SemGrep will do a quick audit on what you're about to kind of add to your code base, and it will flag up any potential issues, any conflicts with previous bits of code, any security loopholes that you're going to be opening up for yourself, and it will again fix it up for you. That's actually free. So I was sitting at this talk yesterday and thinking, oh, this sounds great, but this sounds like an enterprise level, very expensive thing. But no, if you are using it individually, there's a community edition. So the most popular open source SAST engine on GitHub. So it's free to use their kind of basic version. So later today, I'm going to set this up for myself, add the MCP server to Cursor, and give it a go, because I'm sure the things that I have been building over the last 6 months are absolutely full of holes, because I'm not a coder, I'm not a software engineer. So I'm excited to try it out. It's all quite intimidating looking when if you are not a coder, if you don't know what any of these things are. If you don't know what AppSec is, for example, you'd be like, oh, what is this? Do I need this? But I watched the demonstration yesterday about how it's set up and how it can be used by vibe coders. And it's like, oh, okay, that's quite easy. So I'm going to set up an MCP server, give it a go, see how that is. If it is useful, I'll shoot another video about it and show people how to integrate it into their workflow as well. Again, this is not sponsored. I just happened to go to an event that they were doing yesterday and thought it was pretty cool. What's different to CodeRabbit? Not sure. Not sure. I do know CodeRabbit. I have not tried CodeRabbit. Cut code review times and bugs in half instantly. Does CodeRabbit have an MCP? I guess would be the question. I think it does. Yes, it does. So I don't know the difference. But if you do use CodeRabbit, maybe have a look at SemGrep and see if it's any different, any better. I mean, free is also nice. We like free. Right. I'm going to hop on over to open source versus closed source. So we just looked at Flux Two, which is an open source image generation artificial intelligence. And we're comparing it to something like Nano Banana Pro, which is closed source. You cannot get the code, you cannot access the repo and see what is going on under the hood. And they certainly don't give you like the open weights so that you can rebuild Nano Banana Pro yourself. No, all of that sits on the Google servers and you access it via your requests, and then it will send back its results. But they're not giving you the inner workings of Nano Banana Pro. So Flux 2 is something that's called open source. And very basically, this means that, well, I need to be careful here because there's lots of different variations, but very broadly, the code itself is available. So if we come over to here, we can actually see the inference repo for Flux 1. Oh, this is a Flux 1 model. Let's see if we can find Flux 2. It sits inside GitHub. I want to see Flux 2. Let's go back here. There we go, Flux 2. So this means I can come onto GitHub and I can clone it onto my local computer. This way I can actually download the whole thing. I'm interested to see how big it is. Oh, we're done. Okay, this is the model, so we'd have to get the inferences as well. Sorry, the parameters as well. So that was only 30 megabytes, so I've already downloaded that. So I could now deploy this on my own device, if my own device is beefy enough, or on a server that I rent. That's going to be more realistic, which has access to things like GPUs, which can then run the model for me. And this is available on a non-commercial license. So this is not fully open source. So it is open source, but it's on a non-commercial license. It gets quite fiddly here. There are other licenses like, I pulled it up, VS Code, for example. So VS Code is a development environment that is created by Microsoft. They've opened up the repo and allow people to use it under the MIT license. And the MIT license is pretty wide, allowing people to make a copy of the software, to deal in the software without restriction, including without limitation the rights to use, copy, modify, merge, publish, distribute, sublicense, and or sell copies of the software. So this basically allows you to create a fork of VS Code and to edit that, change it, do what you want with it, and then sell whatever it is you've built. So famously, there is a very famous fork or version of VS Code called Cursor. And Cursor are now worth, what's Cursor's valuation? Cursor's valuation is $30 billion. So they've done more than this, but the initial version of Cursor was basically, I hope nobody from Cursor is watching. I know we do have a guy from Cursor who sometimes drops in, Dan. I hope you're not here, Dan. The early versions of Cursor were basically VS Code with ChatGPT or other models slapped onto the side. And it's pretty similar to when you use something like Perplexity's AI browser, or even ChatGPT's AI browsers. That is basically a version of Chromium with an AI interface slapped on the side. Not that complex, and they're built off the back of these existing open source repos. So all of the AI browsers, for example, are built off the back of Chromium, all of them, including Atlas, the ChatGPT one. And then VS Code has been forked into Cursor. I think Windsurf, was Windsurf also VS Code? I'm not sure if it was. Standalone VS, a separate calculation. Okay, well, No, I'm not sure if it was, so I won't say it was. Um, but then off the back of these, people have made multi billion-dollar companies. Cursor, in their defense, have gone from basically taking a public version of VS Code, slapping on AI. They have now developed their own models, something called Composer, which actually gives them a moat. Because any of you at home can technically do something very similar. You can clone VS Code onto your computer, into your development environment, and you can customize it, and you can change it, and you can add functionality, especially because we can now vibe code. So you could build your own cursor. I know people who have built their own AI apps, their own AI vibe coding apps. They've vibe coded their own vibe coding apps. It gets complicated, but that is doable because of the open source movement. There is, this is an old book, but I think it's a useful kind of metaphor, the metaphor of the cathedral and the bazaar. So I'll just come down to it. This is by a guy called Eric Raymond, who was, he's big, or he was, or he is still big in the Linux movement. So the central thesis here is the software essay contrasts two different development methods. So the cathedral model, in which the source code is available with each software release, but code developed between releases is restricted to an exclusive group of software developers, and the bazaar method, in which the code is developed over the internet in view of the public. So the bazaar method in particular is sometimes posited as one of the main benefits of open source, is that everybody can kind of contribute, everyone can see what is happening, and it allows a community to develop open source models together with feedback and kind of accountability as well. That does mean that the community needs to be managed. We've seen recently some communities explode because as soon as you introduce people, you introduce potential problems as well. But why this is all important nowadays is because, well, primarily because the Chinese models are, for the most part, open source. So something like DeepSeek V3, we do not have DeepSeek V4 yet, but if we go to DeepSeek AI, these are open source and open weights versions of their models. So we can get access to them, we can deploy our own models. Because of this, there was some research recently that found that the majority of the AI startups in America are actually using Chinese models because they're open source and they can download those models, deploy them locally, and kind of tinker with them, customize, fine tune. Whereas if you are using a closed source model from OpenAI, from Anthropic, from Google, you do not have control over that model. You are basically paying, you're renting usage of it via the API, and you're sending requests back and forward, but you don't get to control the actual model itself. So we are seeing a split. We've always had this split between closed and open source software development. But in this particular case, the Chinese are spearheading the open source, whereas the American companies tend to be closing. The exception to that was Meta. So Meta were releasing lots of open source models, the Llama models. They recently, a couple of months ago, indicated that they were no longer interested in doing that, and they haven't released any local models since then. To be fair, they haven't released any models since then, but Mark Zuckerberg basically said that is not something we will be pursuing. And this has huge impacts moving forward because China now owns the open source space. If you want to build, then having access to the repo, being able to fine tune it, being able to deploy it locally, being able to create your own version of it is incredibly powerful. And that is not something that most of the American companies are interested in. There is GPT OSS, so they released an open source ChatGPT. It's not very good. And there is no reason to use it when you have access to much better Chinese models. So if you did want to run a local model, if you want to do it on your telephone, I recommend something called LocalAI. This is only on the App Store for now. There is, I've forgotten the name of it. There is a Android one called Small Chat. That's it. I don't have Android, so somebody will have to confirm to this. I believe this is in the Play Store though, so you can just go and grab a copy. Let's have a look. This one, Small Chat. It's on Google Play. This was 6 months ago, so it should still be there, hopefully. Let's see if I can open it up. There we go. Small Chat by Shubham Panchal. 2 stars. I'm not recommending this. I've never used it, but have a look around. There should be Google Play versions as well. Locally though, it works really well on the iPhone. And what you do is you download this application. The application is free. I don't think it even needs a sign up. Yeah, offline, private and secure. And then once you're in, it's going to say, all right, what model do you want to use? And you would download a local model onto your telephone. So this means if you're worried about, oh, I don't want to send information to China, blah, 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 you're not. The model sits on your telephone. It's not connected to DeepSeek servers. It's not connected to Quen servers. It is local on your telephone, on your device. So you get an option between these different models, which one you want to put onto your phone. It won't be as fast and it won't be as good as models you are using that you pay for via Claude, via ChatGPT, but it will still be pretty good, and it will be private, which if that is important to you, this is how you do it. So that's how you do it on your telephone. If you want to do it on your computer, for Mac, I would recommend LM Studio. And again, you download this. Once you've opened it up, it looks a bit like this. I can't share it because I can only share Chrome on this screen. But you can, up in this corner here, basically choose your model, install a model. It would download the files. The files will come from somewhere like Hugging Face. So all of the models are here. So let's see, DeepSeek, for example. So DeepSeek R1. It would download this model. How big is this one? Quite interested. And it will deploy it on your device for you. So that's how you do it. So LM Studio, or you can actually go to Hugging Face, and there are abilities to kind of deploy it via here. So local apps, here we go. They've got VLLM and TGI. I don't know TGI, but I do know VLLM. But you can try them all out. They're mainly free. So LM Studio, I believe, is free. I've never had to pay for it. And I think VLLM is free as well. And that will get it running on your computer. Now, what you'll be running is inference. So you are not training a model. You are just downloading a copy of the model. You're downloading all the parameters and kind of the code behind the model itself, and then running it on your computer. So it will work. It won't be very fast, and it won't necessarily be as high quality as what you're used to with the private closed source models, but it will be fine. Again, this is very different to training your own model. If you want to train a model from scratch, realistically, you need hardware. So PewDiePie recently has been doing this, the YouTuber. His computer, I think, is about $20,000, $30,000 worth of graphics cards, and it's still taking him months to train up a model. So realistically, that is becoming less doable by an individual. It's now costing thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions to train your own model, but you can download an existing model from Hugging Face and run it locally on your computer. So running a model, inference, is doable. Training a model is not, generally. There'll be people who say, oh, I train my own models. Absolutely. It just won't be the quality of Anthropic, who spent hundreds of millions training a model, or ChatGPT, hundreds of millions training a model. That is now out of reach for us as individuals, sadly. I'm going to hop over to questions. Ask Nano Banana Pro to create a slide of KPIs. The quality severely reduces after a few changes. The fact that it can deal with changes at all is great, because previous Nano Banana could not. You give it a change and it would be like, yeah, sure, and it would just return the same thing, and it was terrible. What I would say is, if it's something complicated and it's going to require fiddling around and making sure it's perfect, give it as much detail up front as possible. It has a thinking model on the front end, so it will try to think through as much as possible. But if you can provide more guidelines, more specifics about how you want it to look, what information you want, to be included, then it should be able to get it right the first time, and then you're not going to end up with that deterioration by having to prompt it again and again and again. How do I keep the quality high enough to present? I would just try that. So providing as much information up front, so you are limiting the number of revisions required. The alternative is what we have to do with a lot of image models is downloading the image and then doing manual edits. Obviously not ideal, but that is something that can be done. How can we have a training model? Can the Chinese government give it to us? You can. Do you mean how do you download the models? They're all on Hugging Face. So if you want, you don't have to go to the Chinese government. So if you want DeepSeek R1, it is right here, and you can download it or deploy it. I think there's a download button. Yeah, you clone the repository here. So no, you don't have to go to the Chinese government because the Chinese labs just publish this stuff. This also means for the people who are afraid of information going to the Chinese government, that's not what happens because you are installing it on a local device. It is not sending information back and forward. So it's actually, in a weird way, it's safer than when we use something like OpenAI, because when we use ChatGPT, we are sending information back and forward to their servers. And we seem to be okay with that. Whereas if you get a Chinese model and you download their parameters, you download the model itself, and you stick it on your local computer, that is no longer connecting to the people who created that model. And if you really want, you can block off the internet access. You can run it on a computer that has no internet access and it will still work if you want that security. Oh, why can't we get private models? Why can't we build our own models? You can. You just need a lot of GPUs. You can rent GPUs. So buying GPUs is probably silly right now. Fast? Do I mean? No, I don't want that one. I want. Oh. Bento. There it is. So you can rent. Oh, they don't have their prices anymore. No, here we go. So you can rent an NVIDIA H200, for example, for $3 an hour. What you do, though, realistically, is you'd have to rent a block of them. So it's going to cost you more than that. But one H200 is $3 per hour. So you could train on these kind of machines. Let's go back to that one that had clear pricing at the beginning. You can 100% do it. It's just going to cost a lot of money. And you can buy your own GPUs, but that's very expensive, or you can rent them. So here we go. So 8 H200s will cost you $17 per hour. And you might be doing your training run for a few weeks. So obviously that's going to start adding up over time. And at the end of that, the model that you train is probably still not going to be, well, it will not be as good as Claude Opus 4.5 or ChatGPT 5.1 because they have spent vastly, like they have thousands and thousands and thousands of these H200s or H100s all running in giant pods using NVLink, and they're running them for months and months and months and months. So what they come out with at the end of their training run is going to be vastly superior to what we can do. We can do it as a hobby because it's fun to do. It's interesting to see how these things work and to understand how that would scale up to a kind of production-ready frontier model. We can also do it if we want to train something specifically for our work or for us. So let's say your business has a lot of data. You might want to train a local model on that data. That's a business decision, though, whether or not it's worthwhile doing that compared to using a top-of-the-range model which can work with your data. That's a big question. The problem with training your models, though, is that the frontier labs keep coming out with better models every month or so. So anything that we train today might cost us $10,000, $100,000 to train and then be defunct because everything else has moved on so quickly in the last 6 months or so. but that's a business decision. If you want to train a local model that can be trained, is it really out of reach? No, not at all. It's just expensive. It's expensive and not very efficient. But 100% is, you can do it. Just be ready to spend some money. And you can do it through Vast AI and various different companies where you rent rather than buying. Because if you wanted to buy an H200, oh, they are for sale. I'm surprised they're not out of stock. So this is one. H200 is £30,000. So if you wanted to get 8 H200s, you're going to need a smaller mortgage for that. And then having 8 of these is still tiny compared to, well, let's see, the Colossus data center. How many H200s? Look at me asking Google instead of asking ChatGPT. So Colossus has 50,000 H200s. So 50,000 times, how much did I say it was? 30,000. I can't even work out that number. 15 billion? Yeah, 15 billion in GPUs. This is why it's hard to compete. It's just a lot of money. A lot of money. So yeah, you can buy one of these, but what you can build with it is not going to compete with anything that's out on the market. Plus, it is 30 grand, which is not cheap. Awesome. Right, so that was kind of what I wanted to talk about today. There's not a huge amount of news, which compared to last week, which was an inundation of AI news, is quite nice. I think we're in the post Thanksgiving period where there's a bit of a lull, and then I imagine we're going to be seeing more in December. We'll probably have the 12 days of Shipmas that OpenAI did last week, where they had 12 days of kind of giving us new models. We'll probably have something similar to that again. Europe hasn't got a chance against the Chinese. No, they don't. Europe is basically out of the race when it comes to artificial intelligence. The UK does produce a lot of good researchers. Produce DeepMind, produce Demis Hassabis, people like that, like very high-end thinkers come through our universities. They are then poached away by American labs because the American labs pay them 100 times more what they'd get paid working for a British company. So no blame on them at all. It's 100% understandable, but it means the talent basically goes to America. And things like DeepMind. So DeepMind was a UK company, but it was purchased in 2014 for $400 million, which at the time people were like, oh my God, that is so much money. And now is like pocket change when it comes to artificial intelligence. So Google realized early on, there's a lot of potential here. We're going to scoop up DeepMind. We're going to scoop up people like Demis Hassabis. Good purchase for only 400 million, which I think might go down as one of the best acquisitions in history, because DeepMind has now allowed them to forge ahead with artificial intelligence. So that is a UK-based lab, UK-based talent, but got gobbled up about 11 years ago by Google. So no, Europe it cannot compete with China and America. The amount of investment that's going in, you keep seeing these numbers coming from the EU, like, oh, we're investing 100 million into such and such and such. There's no point. It's just wasted money at this point because you're so far behind that you need to outspend, you need to overspend to catch up. But instead they are underspending whilst being behind. So it's a bit like what we were just talking about with, oh, can you train your own model at home? And I said, yeah, sure you can. You can buy an NVIDIA H200 for £30,000. Oh, that includes the tax. Okay, sorry, only £28,000. You can buy that. You need a whole bunch of them. So XAI, for example, have 50,000 of these working in tandem with each other. But yeah, sure, you can buy one of these and set it up at home. But the model that you produce from this is not going to be competitive because you are not putting in enough investment to be able to compete with the big boys. So what the EU and the UK are putting in are basically, they're not even putting up the table stakes to be able to compete with China and America. So this is a two-horse race, 100%. And it kind of saddens me when I see Europe and the UK kind of say, oh, we're going to build this data center and it's going to be ready in 3 years' time and it's going to have this number of GPUs. And it's like, okay, too slow, not enough, too late. Like, so it's just a waste of money at that point because it's not going to allow them to catch up. Yeah, anyway, don't get me started on that again. I pray every day to have one of these, an H200. Unfortunately, one's not enough anymore. It's not enough. If you want to create an AI model or app that addresses a consumer issue, where should you start? So two different things there. If you want to create an AI model, then you might want to train from scratch. More likely, you would get something like DeepSeek, which I just showed you. I've lost it. You'd get the repo, you'd get a version of DeepSeek, and you would fine tune it. So you'd do an additional layer or additional layers of training on top of an existing model. So you don't do it from scratch because that's wasteful, but you do some fine tuning. You look into things like RAG, retrieval augmented generation, which is basically giving a model a database and saying, hey, only pay attention to information in this database. So you can do things like that with an existing model, and that allows you to create an AI that is your own. It's more specific, but it's built off the back. 80% of the work, 90% of the work is done by the lab who gives you the open source model, and then you do the final 10%. However, you said, how do I build an AI or an app? So these are two different levels. You don't need to build your own AI to build your own app. Very separate things. If you want to build an app, you can just use an API. You can directly connect to ChatGPT. You can directly connect to Anthropic. And basically every time one of your users uses the AI inside your application, that sends a message to ChatGPT. ChatGPT processes information using the prompts that you provided and the information from your user. There's a little process, and it sends back what needs to be presented to the user. That's it. Every time you do that, you pay $0.0001. It's very, very cheap. So for that, you'd go to something like platform.openai.usage. This is my one, for example. And you can get access to all of the models. And you can have a dashboard with your users, with your usage. And here you create API keys. Your API key is what your piece of software uses to talk to OpenAI and say, hey, I've got a user request. The user is saying such and such and such and such. Here's a prompt that is preloaded. Do some processing for me, and then ChatGPT will say, cool, I'll do that, and then send back some result. You pay $1, no, not $1, like a cent, and that is served up in your application. So if you are building an app, that is very different to building your own model. So a lot easier, a lot easier. If you have no idea where to start with something like Lovable. Lovable actually has built-in AI, so it would do all of the API stuff for you. You don't even need to connect to ChatGPT. Sorry, platform.openai.com. Lovable will do that for you. If you're a bit more confident with code and building things, then check out Cursor. With Cursor, you will need to come on to this website, platform.openai.com. You will need to generate an API key. You need to take that back to Cursor and kind of add it to your environment variables. Again, this is a bit more technical, but that is how you set up an AI app. Can you use AI to create an agent that you market? Yeah, for sure. Can you use AI? Okay, so there's some meta levels here. There's using AI to make an AI app. It gets confusing because it's a bit like the analogy I like to think of is Squarespace. So Squarespace is a website that lets you make websites, which is it's quite a few jumps. So there are AIs that help you make AIs. Yes, 100%. So Lovable, Replit, Base44, Bolt. These are kind of the starter ones. They are AI applications that help you make AI applications. So they are like Squarespace, but for AI. bit confusing, but yes, you can do that. If you want to make agents specifically, Um, I'd start with NA10. So you can kind of learn about workflows and agents, because when you're making an agent, it's really about grasping what processes you want it to complete. The actual making of the agent's quite easy. It's the embedding all of the logic and the rules for it to produce good work. That's the complicated part. That's about thinking what the business is, thinking what's actually useful inside of that workflow. So NA10 is a good way to start doing that, because it's all it's like a visual drag and drop interface, and then from there you can move on to crafting agents from scratch. Cursor is so good. I mean, Cursor is wonderful. If you want to make a keep version of ChatGPT, OpenAI want to retire 4.0 version. Yeah, they're deprecating the API on the 16th of February, I think. Just after Valentine's Day, which seems cruel, because lots of people have romantic relationships with 4.0. So to kill it just after Valentine's Day seems... I'm sure it's not on purpose, but it seems very mean. If you want to, so you want to keep a version of 4.0. So OpenAI do not release their weights. So what you kind of need, let's check out OpenAI's GitHub. I do have one. They've got repositories. They don't release their weights and biases because they are not open source. So 4.0 is not open source. They do have an open source model called OSS. Where is it? Not sure if it's here. It must be here somewhere. But they do not have a version of 4.0 that is open source to the public. So that's what you would need if you wanted to keep GPT 4.0. You'd need to be able to download the weights and biases and deploy it on a local machine. That is not something that they've released, and unfortunately there's no way to kind of reverse engineer that out of using the model. So if that was something that was important, I would go and lobby them and say, hey, instead of deprecating it, can you instead of deprecating the API and putting the app version into legacy, which will be deprecated eventually, please open source it. Which I think it's a fair request, because it's a model that they are saying we're not going to support it, we're not going to use it moving forward. So they could be lobbied to release it. The reasons why they might not want to is because it allows other competitors to look at how it's trained, kind of work things out, to reverse engineer it, and to play catch up. Arguably, though, it's an older model, doesn't matter. But so far they have not released many open source models. The only one they have is GPT OSS, which you can get, but it is not like 4.0, unfortunately. Oh, there we go, it's on Hugging Face. There we go. So that is downloadable. I'm using Cursor for business requirements creation too. It's like a Swiss Army knife. Yes. So I use it for crafting course material. So I use it as a writing assistant as well. So because it allows me to structure larger projects, and it allows me to access Claude Code and Claude, etc. I do larger projects inside of Cursor, even if they are not code-based projects. And I know there's a guy called Jeremy Nguyen, Nguyen, Vietnamese, who I know he writes using Cursor. So he does kind of like creative writing using inside of the Cursor interface, because it allows him to structure absolutely everything, which I think is such a cool usage. How do you use Claude Code in Cursor? Okay, yeah, great question. So you open up the terminal and you can run it in terminal. So at the bottom of Cursor, you can pull up a terminal. So for me, now that I have Claude Code installed, I just type Claude and it opens up Claude Code. But what you need to do the first time is open up the terminal in Cursor and use this. So npm install -g Anthropic AI Claude Code. It might need to install node.js in your project. That's fine, it will work that out. But this will basically install it into your project and allow you to access via the terminal inside of Cursor, and it's all connected to your project files. So that's how I use it personally. Very, very cool. I got that off Diona, who is an engineer at Netflix, and she's become my go-to contact. Actually, I'll give her a shout out. She produces stuff over on Diona Hodges over on TikTok. But she actually is a software engineer at Netflix as well as talking about vibe coding. So she really knows what she's talking about. And she's my go-to anytime I'm like, Diona, I'm stupid. I don't know how this works. I'll send her a little message. She's very helpful. And she showed me how to set it up in Cursor. And now I will have maybe 3 or 4 different Claude codes inside of Cursor, all off doing its own thing. Very, very, very cool. I've just brought her up on screen, Diona Hodges. Make sure you're following her. Really cool stuff. Right, thank you everybody. I'm going to hop off. Not much news today, but we looked at Flux 2. And off the back of that, looked at open source and how you would run models locally, whether or not you should train your own models, probably not. And basically looking at the future of AI and whether it is with open source or closed source. It's going to be a mixture of both. People like to say that it is one or the other. That is not true. So hopefully this has been a useful kind of side mission into the world of open source. I do recommend running your own models just to try it out. If you have a telephone, you can literally do it now with LocalAI. Just grab it on your phone, download a model and try it out. It's just kind of cool to see. Or if you want to do it on a Mac, you can use LM Studio or VLLM. I think there's probably a PC version of it too, probably, or there are equivalents. And then Hugging Face is going to be your go-to for actually getting the models, for getting the parameters and getting them deployed onto your computer or your telephone as well. So go and play around with that. I think it's a fun little side project just to see how it works. Layla says Diona is really good. Follow her. Yes, thank you. And yes, a shout out to Diona, who is my go-to help. I need technical support. She's lovely, lovely. Why not fine tune? Oh yeah, you can absolutely fine tune. We talked about that briefly, but you might not want to train a model from scratch just because of the computational requirements. But fine tuning, RAG, etc. Absolutely, those are very useful. Together.ai. Let's pull that up on screen. Together.ai. Okay. So Mike is saying this is useful for fine tuning. Accelerate training, fine tuning, and inference. So they've got, okay, so you can rent GPUs here as well. So this is another one. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. As always, make sure you are subscribed to the newsletter. The newsletter comes out every single day and it has a written summary of what we've just covered. This is yesterday's, for example, talking about GPUs versus TPUs, Anton, etc. So yeah, that's all in the newsletter. I will give you the resources for deploying your own local LLM in tomorrow's newsletter, so it'll be a bit more of a guide than it usually is. So hopefully that's going to be handy. Also make sure you are subscribed over on YouTube if you are not. We are going for 10,000 subscribers. We are at 9,670, so we are pretty close. Might make it next week. So if you're not, make sure you subscribe. That really helps me to continue to do these. Thank you so much, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow. Cheers.